All right, so today we're going to be talking about different patterns and reasoning. So for this first example, we want to make a conjecture, which is basically just an educated guess, kind of, about the next term in the sequence. Then determine the next number in each sequence. So our first number that we have is 2, then 6, then 22, 56, and 114. So we know that this is going to be bigger than 114 because as we go through, each number is getting bigger. Okay? Then all we're going to do is subtract to see what the difference is. So for this difference here, I'm going to do 6 minus 2. And that's going to give me 4. Then for this one, I'm going to do 22 minus 6. That's going to give me 16. Then I'm going to do 56 minus 22. And that's going to give me 34. And lastly, 114 minus 56, which gives me 58. Okay, so these, I want to keep taking the difference or subtracting until these numbers are the same. So because these are not all the same number, I'm going to do it again. So I'm going to do 16 minus 4. Oops. And that's going to give me 12. Then I'm going to do 34 minus 16, which gives me 18. And then 58 minus 34 gives me 24. So again, those are not the same, so I'm going to do it again. 18 minus 12 is 6. 24 minus 18 is 6. Okay? So now we're going to work backwards. Because this difference is the same, I got 6 and 6. That means that I can work backwards to fill in the pattern. So the number that I'm looking for would be this blank. So if I were to continue the difference like I did over here, I would do the blank minus 114 would give me a number. The blank minus 58 would give me a number. And that blank minus 24 would give me 6. Because this whole row is going to be the same because that number for these two differences is the same. So I have this would give me a blank. Blank minus 58 gives me another blank. Blank minus 24 is going to give me 6. Again, because these two were the same, so that means this whole row has to be that same difference. Okay? So now let's say I'm trying to find this blank. Okay, we're just going to call that x. The way we did this to solve was I would do x minus 24 equals 6. Okay, because that's the difference. So I'm just going to add 24 to both sides. So x equals 30. So that means that this spot is 30. Okay, so now if I look here, that would be this x minus 58 would give me 30. So I'm going to erase this part. Now moving up to this blank, if I call this x, I would say x minus 58 equals 30. So I would add 58, x equals 88. So now instead of x, that becomes 88. And now for the last one, this blank and 114. If I call this x, I could say x minus 114 equals 58. Or sorry, not 58, 88. So then I would add 114 to both sides, and x equals 202. So that means my blank, the missing number, is 202, and that is the next number in my sequence. Okay, so we're just subtracting multiple times. Okay, so for the next one, again, we're making a conjecture. So I have 14, 22, 32, 44. So they're all getting bigger. So this number will be bigger than 44. Okay, and we're going to do the same thing. I'm just going to subtract. So I have 22 minus 14 is 8. Okay, so I'm always subtracting the number to the right minus the number on the left. So I'm doing 22 minus 14 equals 8. Okay, now I'm going to do 32 minus 22, and that's going to give me 10. And then I'm going to do 44 minus 32, and that is going to give me 12. Okay, so these are not the same. I have 8, 10, and 12. So I'm going to subtract again. 10 minus 8 is 2. 12 minus 10 is 2. So now these are the same. Okay, so now I can work to find my missing number. Okay, so I'm going to have the difference here will give me a number. And then the difference here will give me a number, but I know that number is 2 already, because since these two are the same, all 3 in that row are going to be the same. So now if I want to find x, I'm going to say x minus 12 equals 2. So I would add 12. X equals 14. Okay. And now to find the next one, I'm going to do the same thing. If I were going from the top down, I would have x minus 44 equals 14. So I just add 44 to both sides. So x equals 58. And that is the next number in the sequence. Okay, now something to notice on the side here, when we're taking these differences, in this example here, this is my first, this is my first sequence here. This 2, 8, 18, 32, and 50. So the first difference would be right here, and the second difference would be right here, okay? When I'm doing this, the first difference, if those numbers are the same after the first difference, it is a linear function. If they're the same after the second difference, it's a quadratic, and if they're the same after the third difference, then it's a cubic, okay? So if we look at these problems that we did, this would be my first difference, this is my second, and then here is my third. So they're the same at the third difference, so that would make this a cubic function, okay, or sequence. If I look at the next one, here's my first difference, and then my second difference. So because they're the same at the second difference, this is a quadratic. Okay? So it's just the number of times you have to subtract. That's going to tell you if it's a linear, quadratic, or cubic. So example 3, I'm going to determine if the statement is true or false. If false, provide a counterexample. And a counterexample is just an example that disproves a statement. Okay? So for example, this says, if you live in Chicago, then you are a Cubs fan. So I'm trying to disprove this. So what that means is I need to figure out a way to have this be true, but this is not true. Okay? So this statement is going to be false. And a counterexample would be, if you live in Chicago, how do I want to word this? Well, I guess I don't really need to write this first part. But this statement is saying if you live in Chicago, then you are a Cubs fan. But if you live in Chicago, you could also be a Sox fan. Okay? Or maybe not a baseball fan. Okay? All right? So the important thing is that this statement is saying if you live in Chicago, then you are a Cubs fan. So you're trying to figure out a way to prove that statement false. If you can, like we have these two examples down here, then that means the original statement is false. Okay? So go ahead and try these you try nows, and then we will go over them after the video.